Mob Psycho 100 is the closest that any anime has ever gotten to being perfect, at least from any anime I've ever seen. Season 1, in my opinion, is perfect. Season 2 is absolutely incredible, and Season 3 could be as perfect as Season 1, depending on its last episodes. In this video, I am breaking down all the aspects that make this anime nearly without flaw. First, I have to clarify what I mean by perfect. A perfect show doesn't necessarily mean one that everyone will like. In fact, it's usually the opposite because it has a personality that just won't work for some people. A perfect show is one that has no apparent flaws with its storytelling while still showing the authentic emotions and thoughts of the author. Basically, I'm saying whether I dislike a certain aspect of Mob Psycho or not, there is nothing I can really point to as a flaw or mistake. I fully accept the artistry of the story just as it is, but on top of that, it has incredible moments, great characters, and a fantastic overall theme that makes it an uplifting and thoughtful experience. Let's start with the characters of Mob Psycho 100 are nuanced and fleshed out throughout the story. Although it focuses heavily on Mob, Reigen, and Dimple, even most of the side characters develop and grow throughout the story. I could make a whole video about the characters alone, from Teruki to Onigara to even Misato, who's getting more screen time in Season 3. Despite the over-the-top outbursts and sometimes insane turnarounds from bad guy to good guy, the characters never feel fake or forced. For example, Teruki Hanazawa. He was cocky and thought too highly of his powers and himself. After Mob put him in his place, he became Mob's friend and helped him in later arcs. Their relationship is also interesting because Teruki looks up to Mob and his insane power, while Mob looks up to Teruki because he is confident and popular. However, he is still overconfident and often looks down on psychics, which causes problems when he goes up against very strong foes in Season 2 and finds himself outmatched again. He's not the most nuanced or fascinating character you'll ever find, but his personality is great. He is used by the plot really well beyond just being an antagonist for one arc, and his turn to being a friend once he was humbled by Mob makes him very likable. Not to mention how his character comes full circle in Season 3, but that would be for another video. The authenticity is felt through the consistency of their characteristics, while still developing them like they are real people. This should be standard for a good story, but the fact that this kind of world building is done with its side characters, while also having some fantastically developed main characters in such a short time is truly spectacular. This leads to the efficiency of the storytelling. This anime, which is a supernatural slice-of-life comedy battle shonen, has 12 episodes in each season. And for example, in Season 1, we get introduced to Shigeo's world, his part-time job working for Reigen, and his school life. During this time, he exercises many evil spirits, each one being a separate small story moment. Through all of this, he pushes his emotions down because he doesn't know how to deal with them, but they well up inside of him, which is shown throughout the series as the percentage that goes up until he hits 100 and can't hold on anymore. This terrifies him that he'll hurt someone he cares about one day because he can't control his powers when this happens. He hits 100 for the first time in the series, fighting against a cult leader who turns out to be an evil spirit that haunts him and becomes one of the main characters, Dimple. With freeing the people from Dimple's mind control, he inadvertently creates a religion with himself as the figurehead. After that, Mob gets thrown into these middle school gang wars, which is just a hilarious and amazing concept in itself. And that ends with him facing down against another Esper, but he refuses to fight because he believes it is wrong to use his powers against humans. The conflict ends in him being forced to retaliate and he overreacts, going past 100%, which destroys the school and humiliates Teruki's meager powers. And so, despite winning the battle, he feels like a failure in the end because he couldn't keep his convictions. An incredible payoff for the setup this far. And this also set up multiple separate storylines that would be explored in later seasons, such as Dimple and the Psycho Helmet cult that is looking for its founder. This was in the first 5 episodes. The pace of this anime is so fast, but the truly amazing thing about it is that it doesn't feel that way at all. The story does go by quickly, but never in a bad way. Watching one 3-episode arc feels like watching an entire anime. The epic moments of Mob at 100%, or the small moments of watching him grow as a person, always feel earned and authentic, even though it's incredibly fast-paced. In both battle shonen and slice of life, it nails the satisfying moments. The two genres aren't two separate shows, and it ties them together perfectly with the lessons it teaches. Now, as I have said in previous videos, having a deep theme or important message does not make a show good, and unlike plot, characters, and setting, which, if one aspect is expertly done, a story can make up for being lackluster in another area, themes do absolutely nothing to the most important part of the story: the entertainment value. However, when a story is good by itself and the events are interesting and compelling, the themes and lessons just add an extra layer. Without it, a story could not hit hard enough emotionally to be perfect. For this anime, it's not just added on top of it. Mob Psycho's theme is woven into the DNA of the story. Through these themes is how I can argue that Mob Psycho is perfect. Some might complain about the villains learning their lesson and becoming useful members of society 90% of the time, which I completely understand. It did bother me the first time I watched it too. No one dies and that can feel unrealistic, but if you're looking for realism and characters dealing with death, this is not the anime for you. Mob Psycho isn't that kind of show, but that doesn't make it lazy or any less powerful. Dealing with death or a purely evil antagonist that forces the protagonist to go against his morality can be compelling, but Mob Psycho is showing a different side to the world and wants to teach a simple yet very true and often forgotten message. People can change. Everyone is flawed and no one is really special. If that's true, then anything is possible for anyone, and anyone can become someone better. These kind of messages run through the whole story, with our heroes and villains. If Shigeo can grow up and work through his problems, then anyone can. And learning this lesson brings him to sympathize with and try to help the antagonists deal with their problems. This happens quite often, and although you can question why does everyone suddenly change, it's easier not to get lost in cynical thoughts when you realize that most of the characters in this story are just nerds who got too obsessed with their special power. This is one of the most beautiful parts of its theme, the anti-power fantasy. Look at Mob's immense power and how it is a constant burden on him, stunts his growth as a person, and causes him to get thrown into violent situations as a child. Then we see these villains who have all this power but lack a life, connections, and happiness. The evil aren't to be despised and hated, they should be pitied. They lead dull and empty lives, which Reigen is a perfect antithesis to. Someone who built up a company that, although brought in business through lies, has a foundation of actually solving problems for its customers and being genuine with helping people in bad situations. Although he has little to no innate psychic potential, Reigen is the most powerful character in Mob Psycho. He always wins, and that's because he has Mob to help him. But he only has Mob because he is a kind and genuine person. The themes of being a good person triumphs over power and violence is what makes me see the sometimes jarring moments of villains becoming friends with the heroes as not a fault of the show. They were delusional people that relied on being special and different. Once they found a superior who was the most basic average person you'll ever see, they found out how unremarkable they really were. I can't count that much thought into the story as a flaw. The last point I have as to why this is a perfect anime is the connection of all the aspects I've mentioned so far. The storytelling itself. One of the things that makes a perfect story is that every scene matters in the overall plot. There is no padding or filler, and Mob Psycho 100 does this in an amazing way. This show is so fun, and one of the main reasons is that it delivers on its premise. Mob works for Reigen, and together they fight off evil spirits for their customers. However, Reigen has no powers and has to hide this from Mob and the customers while getting the problem solved. This premise is amazing and hilarious. It persists throughout the entire show, but it never loses its charm. One of the reasons it never gets dull is that each job progresses the plot, but not in a traditional way. It's not like all of the customers come back for some important moment, or that they get some object that they use later in the story. As far as these jobs go, for the most part, the customers, evil spirits, and events don't matter in the overall plot whatsoever. And I love this, because you never know what's really being set up and what will come back, or if it's just another part of his daily life. Not everything needs to connect all the time. This just makes the story less predictable. However, all of these scenes have purpose, and the most important purpose. Each event in its own way develops Mob, and the things he learns each time changes him and makes him a better person for the eventual major showdown. Not taking down Tochiro, the leader of Claw in Season 2, although Shigeo's development is the only thing that gave him the confidence and clarity of mind to be in that fight. I am talking about the true final event for Mob's storyline, confessing his feelings to Tsubomi-chan. It is a beautifully simple goal in this world of psychic battles and dangerous evil spirits. It feels like a completely unobtainable thing in the first season, and by the third, you really feel how Mob has grown to be able to make the decisions he does. This winds around to the very last thing that makes this a perfect anime, and that is Shigeo Kageyama. a perfect character. Mob Psycho 100 is a character-focused story that all revolves around the psyche of this middle school kid who was gifted with too much responsibility at a young age. His growth is the true story, and it is executed flawlessly in an organic, understandable, and realistic way. Through his interactions with Reigen, the friends he makes, and the situations he is put in, we get to see him grow with each question he has and the answers he comes to, and that it's never as simple as this is right and this is wrong in any given situation. The maturity of the story that is built around this middle school kid is astounding. In the end, there's nothing I would change about the story to make it better. It is entertaining, fun, has great dynamic characters, an amazing plot, and a theme that ties everything together. I don't know how else to describe this anime except perfect, or the closest art can get to it. Thanks so much for watching. If you want a video about Mob or Reigen in the future, let me know in the comments and I'll be more likely to make it. If you want another analytical video about something, check out my playlist. That's all for me. New videos coming soon. Ja meow.